Sharp leaned over Bryce's shoulder, her jaw tight. Get Barksdale security on the line and patch me through to Jag. If something's happened to Naomi, we're moving immediately. Back in Mosswood, Naomi was sitting on the curb in handcuffs. What's your real name? Delaney asked, looming over her. Who you working for? Naomi exhaled slowly. You have my ID, my travel orders. Everything you need is right there. Cooper snorted. Lady, you're about 2 seconds from being booked for obstruction. Don't push it. Naomi said nothing. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw people pulling out their phones, recording. The manager, Paula, stood by the door with her arms crossed, smirking. Suddenly, Delaney's radio crackled. Dispatch to Unit 3. Confirm you have detained subject. Cooper grabbed the radio. Affirmative. Female, early 40s. Refusing to cooperate. Another pause. Then, be advised. Subject is flagged federal. Repeat. Flagged federal. Pentagon has initiated emergency contact. Release immediately and await further orders. The blood drained from Cooper's face. Delaney's smug grin vanished. What the hell? He muttered. Naomi, still sitting, said nothing. She just stared up at them, waiting. Cooper fumbled with his keys, unlocking the cuffs without meeting her eyes. He muttered something that sounded like an apology, but he didn't have the backbone to say it properly. Naomi stood, flexing her wrists where the metal had dug into her skin. The crowd was dead silent now. Naomi picked up her phone from the ground. The screen was cracked, the connection lost. Sensitive information possibly compromised. She looked at both officers, dead in the eye. You're going to regret this, she said quietly. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Today. Cooper opened his mouth to argue, but a new set of flashing lights lit up the parking lot. This time, it wasn't local cops. It was a convoy of black SUVs from Barksdale Air Force Base, tires screaming against the asphalt. The doors of the SUVs swung open in unison. Leading the team was Lieutenant Colonel Darren Mosley, sharp-eyed and not here to make friends. He crossed the lot in long strides, his gaze locking on Naomi. General Ellsworth? Are you injured? Mosley asked, his voice carrying across the lot. Naomi shook her head. No, Colonel. Minor abrasions. The bigger injury was to their careers. Cooper and Delaney shifted nervously. The Air Force security team quickly closed ranks around Naomi. Mosley turned to the local officers, his face like stone. You are hereby ordered to stand down pending federal investigation, he said. Any further action will be construed as obstruction of justice. Cooper stammered. We didn't know who she was. That's not an excuse. Mosley cut him off. You had documentation in your hand. Delaney tried to play the tough guy. She was acting suspicious. Mosley stared at him for a long moment. You saw a black woman on a phone call and made a choice, he said quietly. That's going to follow you for the rest of your life. News of the incident hit national headlines before Naomi even finished her debrief. Someone had posted the cell phone footage online. Raw, grainy video showing 2 cops handcuffing a woman who calmly explained she was a U.S. Army general. It spread like wildfire. By morning, Mosswood wasn't just a dot on the map. It was the center of a growing national outrage. The Mosswood Police Department scrambled to do damage control. Chief Vernon Grady stood in front of a sea of cameras, sweating under his cowboy hat. We regret the misunderstanding, he stammered. The officers involved have been placed on administrative leave. A young reporter cut him off. Chief Grady, why were trained officers unable to recognize military credentials? Was race a factor in this so-called misunderstanding? Grady stumbled over his words, but everyone watching knew the department was cornered. Anonymous sources revealed that both Cooper and Delaney had prior complaints for excessive force and racial profiling, all swept under the rug. Not this time. The Department of Justice opened an independent investigation. At Barksdale, Naomi was briefed constantly. She answered every question with the same steady voice she used to command troops. She hadn't spent her life running from battles, and she wasn't about to start. The press conference was scheduled for noon on a Saturday. Naomi stood at the podium in her full dress uniform, metals gleaming against the deep blue fabric. Her shoulders were square, her gaze unflinching. When she finally spoke, her voice cut through every click of the cameras. "My name is General Naomi Ellsworth," she began. "I have spent 29 years serving this country. Yesterday, in Mosswood, Louisiana, none of that mattered." She paused, letting the words hang in the heavy air. "I was judged not by the content of my character, not by the uniform I've earned, but by the color of my skin and the assumptions made about me because of it." Reporters scribbled furiously, but she was speaking to the people who had seen the video, who had felt that familiar pang of being doubted or demeaned. "I'm not here today for an apology," she said. "I'm here because silence is not an option. Accountability matters. Respect matters. Human dignity matters. And none of these are negotiable based on someone's prejudice." She finished with no dramatic flair, just the truth. "I was not humiliated yesterday. They were. And history will remember it that way." She stepped away from the microphone without taking questions. The applause started small, then grew into something real, something alive. As Naomi walked back toward the base, she knew the world wouldn't change overnight. But maybe, just maybe, it would change a little because she refused to stay quiet. One phone call to the Pentagon was all it took to destroy their careers and show the world that injustice has no hiding place. It was supposed to be just another drive through a sleepy part of Louisiana, the kind of place most people only pass through on their way to somewhere else. General Naomi Ellsworth had made drives like this 100 times before. No security detail, no flashing lights, just her, a rental car, and a deadline. She had a confidential meeting scheduled at Barksdale Air Force Base and didn't have time for distractions. But somewhere between Lake Charles and Shreveport, just outside a tiny town called Mosswood, Naomi noticed the signal bars on her secure phone dropping. She needed to make a call. Not tomorrow, not in an hour. Right now. She spotted an old, half-forgotten gas station, Kelly's Fuel and Food, and pulled into the cracked, uneven lot. It wasn't pretty, but it was enough. Naomi parked near the edge of the building, away from the front door where a few locals were gathered, leaning on pickup trucks and swapping stories in the sticky heat. She didn't think twice about it. To her, it was just a place to get a quiet minute. She grabbed her secure device, stepped out for better reception, and raised the phone to her ear. "General Ellsworth, verifying identity. Initiating briefing," she said, her voice low and professional. The Pentagon officer on the other end started the briefing immediately. Sensitive movements, real-time orders, things only a handful of people had clearance to hear. Naomi kept her eyes moving, casually scanning the lot the way she was trained to, but staying focused on the call. A few people near the gas pump started to glance in her direction. She didn't look like the folks who usually stopped around here, and certainly not like someone in authority without a badge or uniform. She wore jeans, plain sneakers, a loose olive green jacket, and a ball cap pulled low over her short twists. Ordinary clothes. Nothing that screamed four-star general. And that was exactly how she wanted it. But not everyone saw it that way. Inside the station, a woman named Paula Sweeney was watching from behind the counter, mid-50s, with a tight blonde bun and permanent frown lines from a life spent judging everyone else. Paula didn't see a highly decorated war hero. She didn't even see a woman making a phone call. She saw what she wanted to see: trouble. Paula picked up the old landline and called the Mosswood Police Department. She kept her voice low so the customers wouldn't hear. "Yeah, we got a suspicious woman out here by the pumps," Paula said. "Real shady. Might be on drugs or something, acting strange. You'll better come check it out." She hung up before they could ask too many questions. Across town, 2 officers heard the call over the radio and rolled their eyes. Nothing much ever happened in Mosswood. They didn't mind stirring the pot a little if it broke up the boredom. They threw on their sunglasses, jumped into their cruiser, and sped toward the station. Meanwhile, Naomi remained by her car, trying to stay laser-focused on the conversation. The Pentagon was relaying crucial information that couldn't be interrupted. But just as she reached for her next orders, she noticed flashing lights reflecting off the station windows. The cruisers screeched into the lot, gravel spitting out from under the tires. Naomi lowered her phone, squinting at the flashing reds and blues. 2 officers jumped out before the car had even fully stopped. The taller one, Officer Randall Cooper, mid-30s with a buzz cut and a barrel chest, unhooked his holster with a quick flick. The other officer, Shay Delaney, leaner, younger, and too eager, mirrored him. Both of them moved like men looking for a fight. Naomi felt the air tighten. She calmly placed the secure phone on the hood of her car and kept her hands visible, palms open. Her voice stayed measured, controlled, just like they taught her at West Point. "Good afternoon, officers. How can I help you?" she asked. Cooper barked back, "License and registration." "Now." Naomi took a half-step forward, reaching slowly for her wallet. "Absolutely. My ID is right here. I'm active-duty military General Naomi Ellsworth. I'm on official business." Delaney scoffed. "General, huh? You expecting us to believe that?" Naomi pulled out her military credentials and federal travel orders, extending them toward the officers with steady hands. Cooper snatched them away, barely glancing at the documents before shaking his head. "This is fake," he said, tossing her ID onto the hood like trash. Naomi blinked, stunned for the first time.
"Sir, y assure you."
"Shut up," Delaney snapped. "You think you can play us, lady? You picked the wrong town for that." A small crowd was beginning to form. Customers, station workers, drivers who had pulled in for gas and decided to stick around for the free show. Some whispered, some laughed. No one stepped in. Naomi's training screamed at her to de-escalate, but every instinct told her that these men weren't looking for answers. They had already decided who she was. Naomi tried again, her voice low and even. "Please, contact your supervisor. You're making a serious mistake." But Cooper already had cuffs in his hand. "Turn around. Hands behind your back." Naomi didn't move. She stood her ground, not in defiance, but because something inside her broke loose. "I am a general in the United States Army," she said, her voice sharp now. "You are unlawfully detaining me." Cooper laughed, a loud, echoing sound. "Yeah, and I'm the president. Now turn around." Before Naomi could say another word, Delaney grabbed her arm roughly. Cooper forced her other wrist behind her back. The cuffs snapped tight, pinching her skin. Naomi clenched her jaw, swallowing the flood of hot humiliation. Behind her, the secure phone, still connected to the Pentagon, clattered to the ground. The voice on the other end, hearing the chaos, started yelling her name. The officers didn't notice, or maybe they didn't care. Cooper shoved Naomi against the side of her rental car, hard enough to rattle the door. Gasps rippled through the crowd. "Got her," Delaney said, as if they'd just caught a prize. Naomi, breathing hard, stared straight ahead at her fractured reflection in the greasy window of Kelly's Fuel and Food. In that moment, she wasn't a general. She wasn't even a person. To them, she was just someone to be thrown around because they could. But inside the Pentagon, alarms were already blaring. Back at the Pentagon, the secure call had gone from strange to alarming in under 60 seconds. Lieutenant Commander Bryce Hanley, sitting behind a wall of monitors in Washington, D.C., stared at the blinking line labeled J. Ellsworth, secure. The audio feed was a mess. Background noise, scuffling sounds, shouting, then nothing but static. "General Ellsworth, this is command operations. Do you copy?" Bryce said into his mic. "General Ellsworth, respond." No answer. His supervisor, Colonel Dana Sharp, was already striding across the floor. "Ping her location," Sharp ordered, her voice cutting through the hum of the ops center. "Right now."